I'm fantastic. Welcome, Desraie, to another session of Text on Video Conferences Having Coffee. How you doing today?
Good. Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
And we're spreading technical knowledge and talking about security and fun stuff, which is also
Yes.
entertaining.
So I said to you, you had so many detailed stats and all these things. I was like, well, let's do a coffee talk, but I want to do a coffee talk, but I want you to do a little bit more factual, not factual, but a little bit more tangible presentation. So can you show us some numbers? Can you show us some goodies? So because I really liked your content, so I would love to share it with everybody because I think it's information everybody should have.
Awesome. I would love to. I'm just going to share my screen. And that is excellent. So I pulled together some content. I'm hoping that you like it. And really just all about cybercrime. And what is cybercrime? And so there's threats, like you and I have talked so many times. We see that there's threats all around us. To start this conversation on this presentation, I want to talk about when these bad guys, and we talk about who they are and what they are. And there's so many different news articles. So who are the bad guys, and what is compromised identity? What is compromised access? And what is ransomware that we hear in the news every single day? So to break that into kind of different buckets, identity theft, compromised identity. Unfortunately, our information is worth something. So whether that be worth something that someone wants to take it and then sell it in the dark web, or wants to impersonate me, I don't know why anyone would want to impersonate me, but maybe that'll happen. And you see it happen. That great movie that we saw, the identity theft.
I love that movie. Yeah.
Oh, it's so cute. But that's an example of identity theft. When someone's trying to steal your personal information and pretend to be you just in order to commit fraud or to gain financial benefits. People sell that information on the dark web. That's a good example. Compromised access. The information that we have might not, but well, you're important. I'm a little bit less important than you. So the information I have might not be valuable, but if the information I have can get someone access to the information someone else has, or to the access somebody else has, that's valuable. And so that would be, maybe I have access to you, and now you're the big guy in your business. And so now if I go through one and then to the other, and then we steal more information. So compromised access, when someone's trying to steal information, and they usually are stealing it to either to have your access or to gain access to somebody else.
Yeah, like a major supplier to a very large company, if they can compromise their email, they might be able to get a really large invoice paid without any questions asked.
Yeah, exactly. And then paid to their bank account in
Correct.
some amazing country, and we can all go to the beach together.
Right.
So they're stealing your money or your benefits to impersonate you or sell them on the dark web. We see it in old school, like dumpster diving. I remember my parents always making sure that they shredded every piece of paper. And now you're seeing it in bigger things like phishing campaigns, or phone scams are a huge one too.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so much. It's phone scams scary. I do not like
it. If the CRA is calling and asking you to pay your CRA bill in YouTube gift cards, the chances are probably not CRA.
No, don't ever give someone that information.
No.
Ever. And then ransomware. It's in the news every single day. So we hear it all the time. And so if you don't know what ransomware is, now you will never walk away from that conversation again without knowing, but it's a form of malware that encrypts your devices. So just imagine right now, everything that we're doing, you're watching this presentation, you probably have this going on in the background with 3 other things going on. And then you clicked an email and all of that's encrypted and gone. You'll still hear us in the background, which is great because we're pretty entertaining, but everything's encrypted and gone. And at that point in time, you have 2 options. Hopefully you have a solution in place, or a few different options. You have a solution in place so you can roll back and then you're protected, which we'll talk about actually in another presentation, which you definitely want to watch. But also the whole, or you pay the bad guys. You don't want to pay the bad guys though, because you're never guaranteed to get your information back. Or you shut your computer, burn it, and just give up on that for the rest of your life, and you're just done.
Move to Tahiti. Cash in your RSP.
I asked my boss if that was okay, if I could just give up, and he's no. Apparently, he won't pay me. It's weird.
You're like, I don't have enough in the RSPs. Back we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a really important part of the ransomware is to understand is a lot of the times you've executed it and you have no idea. That's the way it's designed. It works in the background and slowly encrypts and places itself in a stronghold position on your computer so that it can demand a ransom in order to unlock it. So it's not as simple as just closing the screen. Gone are the days that there a lot of them were fake ransomwares where you could just close the screen and you were fine. But now it's actually encrypting your hardware, your hard drive, or even attacking hardware now. We're talking with Mike from Lenovo a couple weeks ago, and there's ransomware that's attacking the CPUs and the BIOSes. So, yeah,
it's business. Everyone wants to make money.
Yeah,
and then there's some misinformation around there where people think, well, if I just pay the ransom, I get it back. But there's different groups out there, like the rebel group, who are re-victimizing the same people over and over and over again, because let's face it, they're still the bad guys.
Yeah, and they don't learn the lesson, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. And they're seeing multiple attacks on one day over and over and over again. Like, it's if they realize that there is an opportunity, they'll keep doing it. So who are the bad guys? The evolution of cyber threats, and who are these bad guys? I always thought when I was growing up that it was going to be me and Angelina, and all I needed really to do was to have some rollerblades and a hoodie. And as long as I did that, I could be a hacker and it would be awesome.
You're right.
Yeah. No, I always thought Angelina's going to watch this one day and she's going to be like, oh yeah, that's what I was supposed to hang out with dads. It's great.
Yeah. I think it involves your grandmother's basement, Cheetos, and Rockstar energy drinks.
Perfect.
Not bathing and not cutting your fingernails. I think those things are the new, that's the new uniform.
So to talk to more about who are the threats, like we look through history and you see hacking collectives. The good thing about hacking collectives nowadays, you've got a lot of ethical hackers, which are bad guys who go good. So you'll hear of like white hat hackers. These are people who hackers are really actually pretty interesting. They're people who just wanted to see how things work and see if they could break into things. A lot of the time, it's not necessarily break into things to steal, but break into things just to see if they can. And that's where you get the white hat hackers. And they're really cool because there's a whole business you can hire them to try to test and see if they can steal into your company.
They're the cliff jumpers of IT, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just want to see what happens. Let's just see if I can follow.
Let's see if I make it.
And then IoT hackers. IoT hackers, I wanted to spend a second to talk about this because it's so important in this work from anywhere world that we're in, is thinking about how your devices are connected. Remember when Alexa or OK Google came out, or whatever devices you're using in your house. Nest is another example. And those devices started talking to kids. And you see it in the news where some stranger is talking to your child through the devices. And that's because they're not security devices. And so thinking about how your staff are connecting and how their devices are connecting to the network when they're working on work computers from home is really, really important. Ransomware developers, of course, ransomware service is a new thing that's coming out where these bad guys, they don't even have to put the legwork in now. They can just build it and then sell it as a service. They get monthly payments and then they get a commission from there. Nation state, unfortunately, there's countries around the world that just don't like the US or Canada. Organized crime is another example, just in the fact that it is business. So the bad guys are going to want a piece of it. Doesn't matter who they are. So liquor is legal. This is however many years later, this is the next step. Insider threats, it's another one I just wanted to talk to because this is within your business. And insider threats, think about the staff and the employees you have within your business and how much access and information that they hold. And what if you might have someone who wants to sell that information to a competitor, or you might have salespeople who want to take their book of business and go to your competitor and take all that information. Those are all examples of insider threats. And then from there, the list really goes on.
And really, honestly, you can get, and my joke about what a hacker looks like, they don't look like they used to, and it's very difficult. Like, it's not just the kids in grandma's basements anymore, joking aside, because now you can get somebody who would have been slightly tech savvy, who was maybe a good sales or a con man, but now he's working with the developer people and he's buying ready-made tools to compromise you. And so you got somebody who's really verbally, technically savvy, and understands the lingo, and he knows how to manipulate people, but he's got the tool set that he's just subscribing to, and really technical people to come in and get the goods. So you don't know where it's coming from. That's the problem, right?
No,
it doesn't look they don't have signs like they used to. It's not as evident as it once was.
Think about it, if they can make money, that's where it's coming from. Any place where they potentially might have the opportunity to make some money.
Yeah, social hacking, right? Somebody called somebody that I know, and literally the person on the phone walked them through, giving them access to their security cameras on the web. Literally, just walked them right through it, and they did everything they needed to do to give them access to the security cameras, and they had all their security footage.
Oh wow.
And the person didn't even know about it. They didn't even report it when we found out about it, because we asked the question as to why this person was doing this and was logged in at that time. And it was like, but the person on the other line was just so convincing, and they were from the security company, and they didn't even have a security company for this, that for them. Oh. So yeah, you got to be sharp.
So we started this presentation, you promised that I would have some statistics. I don't actually know if I covered any yet, but I do. This slide is full of scary, heart-wrenching, but also interesting statistics. One of them I want to point out first is 43% of cyber attacks are aimed at small to medium-sized businesses. So doesn't matter if you're a mom and dad pop shop, these range all the way to, you might be a dentist office or a school, or they're still considered small to medium-sized businesses. It doesn't matter the size they are.
And this is really important, and I'm glad you brought that up, Desraie, because what we see is most people think, oh, I'm just I'm just a medium-sized business. I'm not a target. No, you are, because these hackers there's only so many elephants they can go after. You're the gazelles. You're plentiful. There's so many 80% of the businesses out there are small business and medium-sized business. That's where the numbers are. That's who they're coming after.
And it's blanket approach. A lot of people don't realize that it is a blanket approach of attacks. A small, medium-sized business, they might not be looking at you and be like, all right, well, Bob down the street, I think makes $200,000 a year, so I'm going to try to hack into their business. They don't know who you are. They're just literally trying to send out these attacks to many people as possible. And then whoever clicks the wrong link, unfortunately, that is what happens.
And they'll do whatever they can with whatever they get.
Especially considering 85% of all email attachments are harmful. Whenever I look at this stat, I always think about hiring. Think about that poor HR person that, thank goodness, businesses are getting busier and they're hiring again, but all of a sudden you have that HR person that's getting 200 or 300 emails a day because everyone's looking for work. And if 85% of email attachments are harmful, those are really, really staggering statistics.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we started doing 2 years ago. No more emailing in your resume. We don't look at emailed in resumes. It has to be submitted through a portal.
And it's awesome that it's moving. It's slowly moving, but
it's affordable even for small business.
Oh, that's awesome. So good to hear. 91% of attacks are launched from a phishing campaign. Huge. And we used to think phishing campaigns, you can always notice because the language is different. The wording is off. Maybe they didn't say your name right or something along the lines. But now there's more targeted phishing campaigns too, where they might be sitting and watching your emails for weeks and finding out how you speak, who you are, what access you have. And then all of a sudden the CFO is going on vacation and the CEO sends the CFO an email saying, hey, you're going on vacation. Can you just make sure to fill out this form so I can get everyone's pay done before you leave? But that email isn't legit. It's a phishing campaign. And that's how targeted and how smart these people are getting. Cybercrime will cost $6 trillion by 2021. And by the 2022, when we see this number at the end of the year, I guarantee you that number is going to be a lot bigger, especially after what we saw in 2020 and the increase of these attacks. I love this statistic just because I had no idea. Andreas, did you have any idea? 24,000 new malicious apps are removed from the App Store daily. I had no idea. I didn't even know that many apps were in the App Store daily.
I didn't know they added that many, and I didn't know it was that high. But I knew there was a significant amount, but I didn't realize it was that significant.
All right, and then last but not least, this is the most sombering one. A business is hit with ransomware every 13 seconds. So this is really, really important when you are thinking about the next steps of the presentation, that this is not a matter of will this happen or or will this ever happen to you? It won't happen to you. This will happen. There's probably already emails in your spam filter that it has happened. You just were lucky enough at this point that you haven't clicked those emails or they got caught in the spam filter or any of those things. But businesses are getting hit with ransomware way too often.
Yeah. So before everybody runs for the Adderall, do we have some good news?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So I promise went through a lot of scary statistics, and those were nerve-wracking, and I want to make sure you can sleep at night. So by the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you a bunch of tips and tricks that you can take away to protect yourself at the end of this, for sure. Small changes that you can make. So one, like we just said, always remember that you're a target offline and online. Don't say it won't happen to you. As an example, even cybersecurity experts, unfortunately, they're getting hacked as well, because it's never good enough to just, it will happen, and unfortunately it does. So make sure that you have policies and procedures in place, especially in this work from anywhere world. I like to think about, how are your staff connecting? Have you had this conversation about what devices they're using within their own house? As an example, what routers are they using? Have you provided routers as a business? Probably not. I don't think I would do that as a business owner, but it's an important conversation to have, because even as recently as November 2020, we're seeing that Walmart exclusive routers being sold on Amazon actually contain backdoors. That's a threat. That opens up just another risk. Ongoing employee training, really, really important. It's not good enough nowadays, where it used to be you sat in a little room and you had your computer and it was the old outdated video of don't do this and do this. That's not good enough anymore. You need to constantly be training and then testing your staff. And there's, if you're not sure about that, talk to Andreas, talk to Innovation. They'll be able to help you out. But there's a reason for that, reason why it's so important, and it's because people are your greatest risk. We get busy. We forget to do things. We're constantly moving. As an example, we've got this lovely gentleman. He runs the alerting system in Hawaii. I would love his job. Actually, no, I wouldn't. That sounds like a scary job. I just want to work in Hawaii instead of Calgary. I'm in Calgary. It's cold. But he runs the alerting system in Hawaii, and this is his job, to let everyone know that if something bad's happening towards Hawaii, he lets everyone know. This is his LinkedIn profile picture, because he's got an awesome job and he's really proud of it. That looks awesome. That's his password and his login to his computer. People are your greatest risk. You need to make sure you're constantly training your staff, and making sure that they recognize what the risk is and they're always aware.
By the way, we notified him before this presentation, so password no longer works.
Yes, well, that brings us right in the password manager. Can you imagine if it did? I've never actually tested it. I feel like maybe now someone is doing this.
I'm kidding. We actually haven't notified him. I'm assuming that's been floating around the internet long enough that I think somebody might have tipped him off.
We've got an MSP in Hawaii. I'll make sure that let them know.
Yeah, you should let them know, because I don't have any engineers in Hawaii yet. So
yet, I like the yet.
Yet.
Password management. We just saw in the last slide there, super important. So it's really important, of course, not to put your password on your computer, not to put them under your keyboard, not to have them in a sticky note, still not to have them in a binder. You need to have a password management policy within your business.
Not in notes on your computer, not in notes on your phone, under shopping list.
No. If you take away anything from this presentation, the two biggest things, password management is so big. Don't use the same password across your social accounts and your business accounts. That's a huge one. That's where a lot of these problems arise. You shouldn't use the password more than once. And I know there's a slight chance you're not going to listen to me. So if you're not going to listen to me, at least at the bare minimum, don't use your same passwords on your social as your business accounts, but you should be using a password manager. We talk about password managers because, well, 65% of passwords use the same passwords across multiple sites. So we're telling you to use a password manager. 90% of people claim to understand the risk of reusing passwords, but they still do it anyways. Even more so though, I'll just tell you, using a password manager, if you're worried about time, it's going to save you so much time and so much stress on a day-to-day basis. Using a password manager, I use 1Password. Using that literally like my passwords are auto-filled. It does everything for me. If I need to save a password, it auto does it. It picks the password for me. That saves me at least 20 minutes a day, bare minimum, from trying to figure out where my password was, what it was. Did I type it out? I don't have to type out passwords anymore. Yeah,
and one of the commercial ones that we use works on the computer, works on my iPad, works on my Android tablet, works on my cell phone, and it synchronizes across all of them. So, I can either use my fingerprint or I could use my password, and I'm in, and then I don't have to remember a password, because God knows I have enough things to remember. That's the last thing I want to remember.
Yep. As soon when I have these conversations and talk about using a password manager because you don't want to use any of those passwords, or when I talk about it, the amount of time it saves, anyone who doesn't, if you're worried about time, like I cannot say this to you enough, if you're worried about time, security is important. Even if you're worried about time and stress, using password manager will save you so much stress and so much time. Highly recommend.
Yeah, when people talk to me about time, it's an extra step. Yes, it's an extra step sometimes, but if there are ways to streamline, like you said. But if you get compromised, how much more time is that going to cost you?
Yeah, exactly.
And reputation.
Yeah, and because we learned don't think it's not going to happen to me. So we're already there. We already know it's going to happen. So at least we're protecting ourselves. Never leave your devices unattended. Another cool tip. I used to travel 70% or I will travel again 70% of the time, but my normal job, I travel
one day.
And the number of times you see people at Starbucks and they are running to grab sugar and they leave your computer open, or at the hotel lobby bar where they're running out for a cigarette or going to the washroom or something along that lines, and people just leave their computers open. Well, we're not in that world anymore. Thinking about even at home. Do you want your staff's children to be using their computers? Do you want their children's friends? Do you want the husband and the cousin's brother, sister using? And then to pull that all together, be careful what you click. How can you be careful what you click, and how can your staff be careful what they click if they're letting everybody use their computer? You don't know what they're accessing. And there's a lot of things that you can accidentally click on that can, if you're not have gone through this right security training, you might click on something and not realize. Some examples: payment apps that drain your bank accounts in seconds. We saw the very first COVID app that came out was actually also a malware. That was a bad one too. We see the sextortion emails or fake packaging come out. So those are just examples. If you click something, and if you are going through this training and you're watching this and you know not to click, you shouldn't give your computer to somebody else because they don't necessarily know that either. Antivirus malware protection, of course, always important. And then mobile device policy. Mobile device policy, I'm going to go right back to the you don't know what people are clicking. Andreas, you've got kids.
Yeah.
What do your kids do when they're on their phone?
I have hundreds of dollars in unwanted purchases. My daughter, God bless her little soul, she's 7. She was sitting on my lap and she had the phone and my arm, she grabbed my hand and she wrapped it around and put it on the phone and unlocked it. But she didn't just unlocked it. She literally made a purchase with my thumb, and I looked at him like, what are you doing? And she made a purchase for $100 worth of coins and $169 worth of coins in a silly game. My policy is my kids don't touch my phone anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And it happens. Like that is like, not to throw you under a bus. That's an example, but almost a good example, because what if she opened up your email and deleted a bunch of things by accident, or opened up your email and downloaded something that you don't know?
Yeah. And now there is a kid mode on my phone, which I can put in to give them the phone, but I have to have it in kid mode before they touch it. But don't just give them free access anymore. It's too risky. They've dismissed calls. They've deleted emails. They've forwarded emails to random people that have bounced back. And I'm like, what do you do? Who did this? And it's just the kids clicking, right?
And so that's why, like, even thinking about if you're a business owner who's watching this, and this is why you have to have a policy in place within your staff, because what SaaS applications are they accessing? Are they accessing their Salesforce, Gmail, your work Gmail? What work applications do they have on their phones? And what potential is that opening your business up to risk? Security testing and configurations. It's not, we go back to having security testing configurations within your business, but then also all the way to your employees. Talk about making sure that your staff are trained, but also always challenging them. We have emails that come out to us. I got a text message from my boss with the link in it, and I was worried about clicking it, because that's an example of a test that I would get being like, you shouldn't click this. This might potentially be ransomware. And those tests should happen to your employees at all points in times. And Andreas, we're almost done here. Last thing we have to remember is backups, 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 backups. I couldn't work with Datto if I didn't talk about backups. And we're going to do a whole presentation on what the difference is between having a backup and having a backup plan and having a business continuity plan, because really the difference is going to cost your business.
Yes. And one thing that I didn't see in our presentation, which I wanted to add, which just came to mind, along with the passwords, two-factor authentication.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a must. Wherever you can put in two-factor authentication, you should have it. That will, even if they do get your password, you're adding a second level of authentication. And do not use the text me an authentication code. That's not two-factor authentication. You need to use a proper app like Duo or Authy, something like that does proper two-factor authentication. I'm not a big fan of the Google Authenticator, or the Microsoft Authenticator is okay for Office 365, but nothing else. But yes, you should have a proper strategy for that as well. Again, a few simple steps, and you can remove a good
risk.
Yeah, a good chunk of those threats, right? So that's why I really appreciate you, Desraie, doing this helpful list with us. I think it's a great commencement point for people to walk away with. Start with this, understand what you're looking at first. And this goes back to you weren't present, and we haven't released it yet, but I did a talk with Netrix, and we were talking about security frameworks. And doing all this is so important. Having proper frameworks in place for your business is so important. Having proper structure, because if you're not doing, let's say, or your IT department isn't doing proper inventory of what computers you have and where your network sprawl is and what you're doing, then you go to deploy a password management solution, and you only give it to half your team, or you're deploying antivirus and it doesn't go on every desktop or laptop that you own or tablet, right? So it's part of, it gets you understanding these are what you need to do to protect your perimeter, to protect your assets, protect your information. But at the same time, you need to be doing some planning. So this is a great talk. Thank you so much, Desraie.